Have you ever had that moment when the thought of death suddenly feels real? Not just as an abstract idea, but the realization that one day you won't exist anymore. I've had that moment too. And for a long time, it created a deep sense of unease that I didn't really know how to deal with. But over time, I discovered a few ideas that slowly helped me make peace with it. And that's what I want to share with you here. For a brief moment, the mind almost freezes, trying to process something it was never meant to fully understand. Maybe you're lying in bed at night. The room is quiet, your mind starts drifting, and suddenly the realization arrives. One day, this will all end. Not just your job, not just your routine, you, your thoughts, your memories, your entire experience of being alive. For a moment, your brain struggles to process it, because this isn't just a philosophical thought, it's not a theory, and it's not optional. It's an undeniable reality. It is going to happen. And when that truth sinks in, it can create a strange feeling, almost like a sudden drop in your stomach, a wave of dread. Your mind quickly tries to escape the thought. You reach for your phone, think about tomorrow, anything to push the idea away. For a long time, I didn't know what to do with that feeling, until I discovered something surprising. The fear of death isn't actually about dying, at least, not in the way most people think. Once I understood what the fear was really about, something unexpected happened. The dread started to lose its power. Something interesting happens after moments like that. Most people don't sit with the thought for very long. When the realization appears that one day you will actually die, the mind immediately tries to move away from it. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. Our brains were never designed to understand death. They were designed to avoid it. For most of human history, survival was fragile. The humans who survived were the ones whose brains reacted quickly to danger. Fear, alertness, avoidance. That survival system is still inside us today, which means something interesting happens when we think about death. Even though it's only a thought, your brain treats it like a real threat. That uncomfortable reaction, the urge to distract yourself, the instinct to push the thought away. That isn't weakness. It's simply your survival system doing what it evolved to do. And once I understood that, something shifted. Because the fear I felt wasn't some deep truth about existence. It was simply my brain reacting the way it was designed to. And the strange thing is, most people never talk about this. Yet almost everyone has felt it. That realization led me to another insight. When we fear death, we're usually imagining something. Darkness, nothingness, the end of everything. But those are things we imagine while we're alive. We're using a living mind to picture a state where that mind no longer exists. And that creates a strange paradox, because every fear requires a mind that can feel fear. But death, by definition, is the absence of that mind, which means something important. The dread we feel isn't really about being dead. It's about the experience of thinking about it while we're alive. Once I understood that, the thought of death started to feel less overwhelming. Over time, a few ideas helped me make peace with it. The first was simply not running from the thought every time it appeared. When you allow the thought to exist for a moment, something interesting happens. The feeling rises, and then slowly fades, just like any other emotion. Another helpful perspective comes from philosophy. We don't fear the billions of years before we were born, and death may simply be a return to that same state. Seeing it that way made the idea feel less mysterious. Another thought came from something simple. Every night we fall asleep. During deep sleep, the sense of self disappears for a while. No thoughts, no awareness of time, and yet we don't fear that experience. Sleep isn't the same as death, but it reminds us that the mind already knows how to let go of awareness in a way that feels natural. Then there's the biological perspective. Every living organism eventually dies. It isn't a malfunction of life. It's part of the process that allows new life to exist. In that sense, death isn't separate from life. It's part of the same system. Another thing that changed my thinking was hearing from people who have come close to dying. Many near-death experiences describe something unexpected. Not panic, not terror, but a sense of calm, almost like drifting into sleep. Of course, we can't know exactly what death is like, but those experiences suggest the mind may handle that transition more gently than we imagine. Gradually, these ideas started to change how I saw the whole subject. Instead of something purely terrifying, death began to feel deeply connected to life itself. Because in a strange way, the fact that life eventually ends is also what makes it meaningful. Without that boundary, time would stretch endlessly. Nothing would feel precious. And slowly, the fear began to change. Instead of a looming shadow, death became more like a quiet reminder. A reminder to pay attention to the time we do have, to notice the moments we're living right now. Because the truth is, none of us knows how long we have here. But we do know something else. Every human being who has ever lived has faced this same moment. Every scientist, every artist, every parent, every ordinary person who ever lived their life. At some point, every one of us will walk that same path. And strangely, remembering that can make the experience feel less lonely, because it means we're not facing something unusual. We're simply sharing the same human journey that billions of people have walked before us. And right now, in this moment, we are alive. For thousands of years, some philosophers practiced a simple idea: memento mori. It means, remember that you must die. Not as something dark or depressing, but as a reminder to live more intentionally, to appreciate the moments that are here right now. Because in a strange way, the fact that life eventually ends is also what makes it meaningful. And that might be one of the most extraordinary things in the universe. Perhaps the goal isn't to stop thinking about death entirely, but to let that awareness remind us to live a little more fully while we're here. Maybe the question isn't how to avoid thinking about death, but how that awareness might change the way we choose to live. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you think about life in a new way, make sure to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this.